This episode is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com, the #1 seller of games and gaming accessories. And GatheringMagic.com, the #1 resource for Magic the Gathering news and articles.
Hi, my name is Uriah, and this is my Sigarda, Host of Herons Commander deck. This is my Sigarda, Host of Herons deck. She is a 5/5 flyer for 5 mana with hexproof, and whenever an ability or a spell an opponent controls would cause me to sacrifice a permanent, instead I don't have to. So she's pretty resilient. When all of the original multicolor Avacyn Angels were spoiled, I wanted to build a Gisela deck, but it seemed like everyone was building Gisela decks, so I decided against it, and I already have a Zur deck, and Bruna's too close to Zur for me to want to build her, so I ended up settling on Sigarda. I did run a lot of non-basics in this deck in the past, but right now it is somewhat basic heavy, with 9 plains and 7 forests. I do have a couple of Metalcraft cards in the deck, so I do run a Tree of Tales and an Ancient Den for those. For the lands that tap for both colors, I have a Savannah, a Temple Garden. For fetches, I have a Grasslands, but no Windswept Heath. I know, I should probably get one, but I don't. So for the other fetches, I have Wooded Foothills and Misty Rainforest. Both only get me a forest, but I can either fetch a Temple Garden or a Savannah, which give me access to both colors. I don't think I've ever run into the issue where I need a white, but I have a green fetch in play. I also run Krosan Verge, Brushland, Sunpetal Grove, Command Tower, Razorverge Thicket, Reflecting Pool, Wooded Bastion, Graypelt Refuge, Selesnya Sanctuary, and then for some of the utility lands I have Vitu-Ghazi, the City Tree. This might be one of the cards that I end up cutting. This Sigarda deck is actually one of my newer decks. It itself is not that new, but I don't build a lot of decks, so of the decks I have, it's one of the newer ones. So I haven't really put a whole lot of effort into it. It's pretty close to how I originally built it. And Vitu-Ghazi hasn't been super great for me. I tend to want to spend a lot of mana each turn just equipping things or Voltrining up Sigarda, as opposed to leaving mana open to create little dudes. So I actually am looking very much for suggestions in the comments below as to how you think I should improve this deck. Vitu-Ghazi is in there, but I think it's probably going to get the cut here pretty soon. I never seem to activate it. Gavony Township is another land that I really like, but I don't run a ton of creatures, so the +1/+1 counter on each creature I control ability is good, but it's not super great in this deck. So that's another one that might be getting a cut here soon. I also run Hall of the Bandit Lord just to give some haste to Sigarda, and then Maze of Ith for defense. Some other mana rocks, I have Sol Ring, the Signet, and Darksteel Ingot. For mana, I also have Safewright Quest. This is great to fetch up a Savannah for just 1 mana, put it in my hand. Grandpa, Solemn, and Mirari's Wake to give me some double mana and +1/+1 later on in the game. The main idea here with Sigarda is to get her up to 7 power and then swing 3 times to end the game as quickly as possible. So I have a lot of things in here that give +2 on the attack. We have Rancor, Unflinching Courage, and the original one, Armadillo Cloak, with not the original art. Shield of the Oversoul, which is great because if you can make Sigarda hexproof and indestructible, she is very difficult to deal with. And of course the +2/+2, which is going to make that quicker clock that I want. I run 4 of the swords, Sword of Fire and Ice, Sword of Light and Shadow, Sword of War and Peace, and Sword of Body and Mind. I would like to run Sword of Feast of Famine, but I don't have one, so it's not in there. I also realized that the pro-white and pro-green on some of these swords does create a problem with Rancor or Unflinching Courage and Behemoth Sledge, so that is something I do have to deal with occasionally, but because the swords themselves are still giving me to that 7 power range, it's not a huge issue if Sigarda is 7 power as opposed to 9 power. It's really not going to increase my clock that much more. So some more, we have Behemoth Sledge for the +2/+2. Tolsimir is going to give Sigarda a +2/+2 and throw a wolf into play and pump my other guys as well. Then other just Voltron-y type stuff I have in the deck, Eldrazi Conscription. I don't get it out often, but when I do, it ends the game really quickly. We have some more haste abilities here with Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots. Just some more random equipment and Skull Clamp. Loxodon Warhammer is going to be a +3/+0 trample lifelink, so that's pretty good if I have a sword in play. Batterskull, I like that one a lot, and Argentum Armor is really good if I can cheat it into play with things like Stoneforge Mystic. Because I'm running so many artifact equipment in this deck, I definitely wanted to run a Stoneforge to get it out into play quicker, and just to search it up. Also running a Stonehewer Giant for the same reason, and Steel Shaper's Gift allows me to get an equipment in my hand as well. With all the equipment, it's going to be a lot of artifacts, and since I was already looking for Metalcraft anyway, Puresteel Paladin is a no-brainer for me in this deck. Allows me to draw those cards when the equipment enters the battlefield, and then the negative equip cost, if I have Metalcraft, is huge, especially with some of the higher equip costs like Batterskull or Argentum Armor. Also in line for reusing equipment here, we have Auriok Survivors of 4/6/6. When it enters the battlefield, you may return a target equipment card from your graveyard to the battlefield and then attach to Auriok Survivors. That's really great with a Batterskull or an Argentum Armor if they think, finally, I got rid of that, so they can stop, he's not going to blow up my permanents anymore. Play this as a 6-drop. With Argentum Armor, it becomes a 10/12, start beating again. It's great. I like Auriok Survivors a lot in this deck. Another Metalcraft card here, Etched Champion. I have a few creatures in this deck that I wanted to put in because they have protections or some other way that make them more difficult to kill. So if for whatever reason Sigarda gets killed and I can't recast her because she costs too much mana, I want to have some other kind of creature, maybe even early creatures, that I could throw down and start putting equipment on as maybe sort of a mini Sigarda version, just to go ahead and get a lot of damage in without a lot of ways to remove it. So Etched Champion's going to get pro all colors if I have Metalcraft. Mirran Crusader has pro 2 colors plus double strike, which is crazy good with all of those swords that I'm running. I have Troll Aesthetic, Hexproof, and Regeneration. Commander Isha, she's pro creature, so she does die to a lot of pinpoint removal, but with the pro creatures, no one's really going to be able to block her at all. Oversoul of Dusk, pro 3 colors, which is very nice. And Phantom Nishiba, trample, and he's very difficult to kill since he prevents damage and then just removes counters, so he can stick on the field a very long time unless a Wrath or a pinpoint removal is coming his way as well. For some utility creatures here, I have Qasali Pridemage, Safi Eric's Daughter, which is great if I want to keep Sigarda in play when a Wrath is on the stack. Scavenging Ooze just as a way to control graveyards a little bit and gain a little life. Dauntless Escort is another way to get around Wraths. Witness is great, of course, for anything. Willow Satyr is just a fun, wacky green card that I had that I wanted to put into a deck, so this is the one it ended up in. It's an old Legends 1/1 for 4. Tap to gain control of target legend, and if Willow Satyr becomes untapped, lose control of that legend. Green really doesn't have this ability in any other cards, so it's pretty awesome to have a green control magic, essentially, if only for legends. And of course, it's Commander, so everyone's playing a legend, so that can get fun sometimes. Also just have Linval in here to shut off activated abilities from opponent's creatures. Doesn't do a whole lot just as a 3/4 flyer, but utility, and I had an extra one, so I threw it in, why not? Seedborn Muse, just because it's green, so why not run Seedborn Muse? Although not a ton of ways to take advantage of it in this deck, not a whole lot of instance, but it gives everything pseudo-vigilance as well, which is okay. Enlisted Worm is just a creature train. It's a 2-for-1 automatically because of the Cascade. And it can hit a lot of things due to the high mana cost. It is just a vanilla 5/5 on 6 though, so in of itself, not that great. Hornet Queen, she's pretty awesome. Flying Death Touch, make a bunch of little flying Death Touchers along with her. 7 mana is not too great in this deck, so I can usually hit that pretty easy. A little bit of tutoring. We have Worldly Tutor and Sterling Grove, which can either protect my enchantments that are in play or fetch up another one for me. Usually with this, I'm going to go find Mirari's Wake. I also have some ways to draw extra cards and manipulate my library with Sylvan Library. Removal package, we have Swords to Plowshare, and of course Path to Exile. Wing Shards is great because when I'm facing down another Voltron General, it's likely to have Shroud or Hexproof, so I can't target it with my stuff. And as you'll see, the Wrath effects that I do have in here tend to leave a couple of creatures behind. So having a way to make a person sacrifice their Voltron Legend, or if there's a big horde coming at me and they played a bunch of spells already this turn, I can wipe them out. That's pretty great because it's scalable, so I like Wing Shards a lot in this deck. Return to Dust, removing artifacts and enchantments are great, especially with the gods that were recently printed in Theros. We have Divine Reckoning. Each player chooses a creature he or she controls, destroy the rest. I like this because I can leave Sigarda in play and have all the other creatures die, because I really just want that Voltron General out with all the equipment on her. I don't really care if a couple of my other guys get destroyed, so Divine Reckoning is pretty good for that. Unfortunately, I am leaving usually a big person on the other side of the board as well, but hopefully my Flying Hexproofer will get in there before their creature can. Austere commands, I can go big or little on the creatures, destroy artifacts, destroy enchantments, so that can leave some creatures behind as well if I want to keep Sigarda safe. Martyr's Bond wasn't in any other deck, so I decided to throw it in here. It's pretty good, I guess. If I had more sacrifice outlets and effects on my side, it would probably be better than it is. But it's fine. It doesn't get a whole lot of play in this deck, but it's there. Desert Twister, just pinpoint, destroy a permanent for 6 mana. It's hard to argue with that. Aura Shards, as you saw, there's not a ton of creatures, so this does get in some work just because it's so good. I had to put it in here, but it doesn't get as much done as, say, a creature deck, or maybe a deck that has a bunch of token makers in it. But still, for 3 mana, Aura Shards, white-green, it's hard to argue with not putting it in the deck. Some more library manipulation with Sensei's Divining Top. Graveyard Control with Crypt. Thomas's Coffin is really one of my favorite cards. I wish I had more of these. If you don't know what it is, it's an old card from Antiquities. It's kind of like a Journey to Nowhere, like a repeatable Journey to Nowhere, but the creature's going to keep any counters or any enchantments on it. But you can pick and choose which creature you want to get rid of. You pay 3, tap it, that creature gets journeyed, and then as long as it remains tapped, that creature stays out. So it's really cool if they play a commander. You can put it in the coffin. If they decide to put it back at the command zone, great. Now they got to pay 2 more whenever they recast it, and I can untap my coffin and do it again. If they decide to leave it in the coffin, well, my coffin's going to remain tapped for as long as I want it to, which if your Legends under there, it's probably going to be quite a while. We have a fun, wacky card in Stronic Resonator with all the triggers from Swords and Sylvan Library and Grandpa. I love this card just in pretty much any deck I have. I do tend to slow my game down a bit when I have it in play just to make sure that I have enough mana to keep it open for activations for stuff, because the 2 mana investment is probably going to get me a trigger that is worth more than the 2 mana would cost. If I'm getting, the activations on a Sword of Fire and Ice where I'm dealing damage and drawing a card, I think that's worth 2 mana. If I'm getting the extra lands off Grandpa, that's easily worth 2 mana. Sylvan Library, looking at an additional 3 if I wanted to, that's also worth 2 mana. So I really like Stronic Resonator in a lot of decks, especially in this deck. I think it's just great. Sundial of the Infinite, a little bit wacky, maybe not the best card for this deck. I just have it in there because I had a foil one and I wanted to play it. And then finally, Asceticism. Since so much of my stuff has either hexproof or some kind of protection already, it's not the most effective it could be, but I do like that regeneration clause. It especially works well with Austere Command if I want to regenerate my guys but below the board, so that's okay as well. But again, not super strong, probably a deck, or probably a card I should say, that I could definitely cut and not be too worried that I'm missing. Thanks for watching this edition of CMDR Decks. Don't forget to please subscribe and favorite.